Okay.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. Is this Mr. Bonry?
Oh yes, Sean Bonnery. Yeah, I'm going to roast rabbis. We're going to talk about society. We're not going to talk about yeah, but
Love it.
we'll talk about it all.
Sounds good. I mean, Bond can't hold back.
Oh yes. Um, I can't even believe what happened last night. I kind of want to accumulate a lot of my thoughts and things that have been going on. It's shocking because, in a way, with the previous videos, I've had an opportunity to go through the things that almost hit me on like a week to week. But now with the faith meetings at the gym and everything that's going on in my life, it's been a moment since we've done one of these. Just kind of sit down
Yeah, it has been.
in the bunker, the black background. Uh, yeah, I don't know exactly where it is you want to start, but there's plenty of places to go. If you don't have anything on, you might as well start off.
You
'Cause,
were you have
I was going to start
go ahead.
specifically with, I think a lot of it does revolve around Judaism, the sects, what's actually going on, and uh, what's happening in society. Again, we're talking from our perspective as Jews born in that fashion. I actually want to talk about a couple misconceptions that seem to be going on the internet to my previous comments and videos. And one of them is that people are like, oh, you can't be born with those values. You can't be born Jewish. It's just a mindset, and of course they're correct, right? Like religion, you could potentially say is man-made, and I mean, it usually is. And well, it is man-made, right? It is man-made. And what does it mean to be born with those values? What exactly did I mean by that? Is that, no, obviously I wasn't born any different than anybody else. We're all of the same materials and flesh. We all die, right? We're actually all each other's brothers and sisters outside of religion. God treats humanity to a certain extent, and the historical narrative shows that. What I meant by saying that is, at a very young age, my parents were teaching me the Bible, okay, and they were telling me to do things like wear your tzitzit. People. I kind of want to show the camera, that like if you're Jewish, you need to be wearing these. You need to be wearing this. This is a commandment from God. And yeah, there's four corners. I've been gifted the opportunity from Israel because he's a master Jew, and he has put even the blue thread, which apparently you can have if it's not born from the snail, the blood of the blue snail in the bottom of the sea.
Yeah, the blue is absolutely a very clear.
I'm going to step off camera to tuck on my shirt. Keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, well, the blue is obviously a very clear biblical commandment. And yeah, there's nothing about a snail in the Torah, but it's
Yeah.
literally part of the
I
commandment.
mean, what
So
are
it
we
says,
even talking about anymore? Can you believe we're talking about snails? All of a sudden, we're talking about tzitzit, and then we're
Yeah.
talking about snails.
well, look, it literally says you should wrap your tzitzit, your tassels, with a blue wrapping, and then it will be considered as the tzitzit. So it's the blue is imperative in the fulfillment of the commandment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, again, following the commandments is what has reached the entire world, and the Christian conquest has established the most God-fearing country on earth, at least for the past 2,000 years. It's definitely not Israel, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I'm speaking on behalf of those things, that's why I want to clear up a lot of the misconceptions. And these are, to me, funny things that come out. Like, can you imagine you say a phrase like, I was born with these values, like this was part of my upbringing. And people are like, what do you mean you're born with it? Nobody's born like that. And it's okay, so I'll clear that up. You yourself, if you have anything that has been ridiculous on comments, you might as well address it now.
Yeah.
I think all of it's ridiculous. The anti-Semitism is crazy, by the way.
It's crazy.
I get comments and people who message me on DM, and they're like, I'm watching your stuff, and like, what is it you did that like people hate you so much? And the only response that I can say is that I'm Jewish.
Yeah. No, I've been seeing like Jew hatred rise a lot. And I have a different feeling on the whole anti-Semitism thing than most Jews. I'm not like, first of all, there's not much you can do when like people mobilize against the Jews. It's a historical phenomenon that's quite scary and very consistent over time. Yet, I feel like the only way out of that is to address the concerns. Because if there are valid concerns against the Jewish people, then that's worth addressing. And I think both me and you make an effort to point out where those critiques of Judaism and the Jewish people are justified. Because there are things that the Jewish people are doing wrong. In fact, there's a lot that the Jewish people are doing wrong from the standpoint of God and what He obligates us to do.
Well,
And, and so
and
look,
Judaism,
yeah,
right?
and look, I can't help like baby killing anti-Semites who just want to kill Jews. Like it gets to a point with Jew hatred where it's
well,
like it's just
World
the
War II,
Holocaust,
right?
yeah, and that's just horrific. But if a non-Jew actually sees problems with Judaism and doesn't want to become murderous because of it, but actually just wants to know what's going on. Yeah, what's going on is that the Jewish people are walking around with the baggage of thousands of years of rebellion against God, and included in their tradition is evil ideas, evil agendas, man-made ideas that do not come from God. Uh, the statements in the Talmud that are circling on the internet, they're really in there, and the Talmud really does say all of that fucked up shit. And that's because the Talmud is a man-made book that was written by corrupted people.
Mhm.
And like if Jews can't own up to that, then we don't have a chance of ever moving past this.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're making a stance for sure. I know I am personally. Again, I'm not Orthodox. I am a rabbi, and I am Jewish, even though I live in Los Angeles and I interact with the world, which is secular,
Mhm.
right? Now, fortunately, we have Christian brothers and sisters, even Muslim brothers and sisters, who understand the narrative of the Torah. We can call the Torah the five books of Moses. We can also call it the Bible because all the additional writings beyond the five books of Moses are an extension of God's Torah, and it's God's way of communicating with mankind, right? And we see that it works. Like even if all of it's man-made and there is no God, if you were an American, then you would at least value the fact that the entire American conquest was started on gaining religious freedom.
Yeah, and
right?
Christian ethics are derived from the Torah.
Well, again, we're talking about religious freedom.
Yeah.
Religious freedom from what?
Mhm.
This is where Protestantism kicked into the picture, where people wanted to live by the book,
Mm.
and they did. The first set of civil law that was ever written in America, which is closer to the 1600s, they actually established the Shabbat, the Sabbath.
Mhm.
These are Christians who did it, and they made it part of the civil code of ethics. And every person who is on the Mayflower, they didn't bring, crazy stuff with them. They brought shoes and they brought basic necessity and food, but every person on that boat had a personal Bible.
Of
right?
course.
That's incredible. And we're going to say the people who did that in that fashion and what they accomplished doesn't work. That isn't worth doing.
Mhm.
You see, the people who didn't have the Bible, they didn't know how to make a wheel. They had low quality of living, disease, dirtiness. They were essentially cave people.
Yeah,
They were cave people,
savages,
savages.
human sacrifice.
Correct. And the difference between the Babylonian Empire, because if it just tracks back, that's basically where it all stems from, and what was going on in America before the Europeans took it over. The difference between those two pieces of land is the Bible and the history that preceded that.
Mm.
And again, I have the belief that the Bible is history, and that even if it were a lie, even if it were a lie and it were absolutely not true, to withhold that, because it is a piece of history, it was still the foundational piece that allowed people to move forward and do the things in this country. If it's no longer applicable to today, which is an argument that I suppose could be made, which I definitely don't agree with, you would still have to teach it to others so they know that, like, oh, this is what happened. This is the problem with the Jewish culture and the Christian culture, where they don't teach you the unpleasant things about history. It's also why the Jews can't get better.
Mm.
The Jews are not aware of the fact that they are responsible for a lot of terrible things. Unfortunately, the Bolshevik Revolution is definitely, like, you keep looking into the history, it doesn't matter what the percentages are too high. for such a small nation to have been a part
Yeah.
of that many people dying.
What I've noticed about the Jews is they have a very naive view of themselves. Like they think they're some harmless people who've never done anything wrong. Like, what are we, just like little harmless people? Why do you hate us? It's like, if you don't recognize that you are a monster and that you've done a lot wrong, you're never going to get better. And like, there's no shame in that. I mean, maybe there is shame in that, but there's no running away from that. You have to own up.
There's a lot of shame and conviction. These people actually believe in the Talmudic beliefs, which is elitism, not part of God's Torah and Bible. You have tons and tons of laws and a massive piece of literature that you have to read as if that's even humanly possible for certain people. It's mostly not even humanly
By the way,
possible.
a guy just told me that with all of the accumulation of the Talmud, the Mishnah, the Shulchan Aruch, the Maimonides, you have over 5,000 laws made up by rabbis. 5,000.
5,000. I mean, isn't it enough that as a general Orthodox statement, it's 613?
Yeah, by the way.
There's no 613.
No.
I said this yesterday. I said, look, there's the 10 Commandments, and then there's a branch of the 10 Commandments. Beyond the 10 Commandments, there's actually, most of the laws are just extensions of the 10 Commandments. So like, don't steal, right? So for me to say something like, pay your workers on time, you should not let their payment sit from overnight until morning, right? This is something that employees should be focusing on anywhere, regardless of your religion. That is, again, to not do that, you're stealing from this man. He has worked hard, and you're taking from him what he's earned, right? And again, stuff like that, 10 Commandments. Beyond the 10 Commandments, you have tzitzit, mezuzahs, tefillin, and that's it. Like that, you 613. Like you're tripping out. If I were to count to 613, it would take me. What is that? 60.
It's definitely not 613.
It would take me quite a bit of
minutes. If you look at their books where they track the 613, it's a lot of rabbinic commandments included in that. So it's not accurate. It's definitely not 613. And as you say, like it's just a couple commandments at the end of the day. Yet those commandments are so fundamental that they will actually be your safeguard and save you from not completely ruining your life by going off the beaten path that God set for us. So it's really, as God even says, I'm giving you this for your own good, right? And we either trust that or we don't. But it's an interesting conversation. We can probably bring it up as to whether viewing the Bible metaphorically is the same as viewing it literally. And I was having this conversation with a guy last night, and he was saying how he's agnostic as to the literal nature of the Torah, but he believes in the metaphor, right? And I said, look, like, that's good. It's good to know that the metaphor is real, because people that reject even the metaphorical truth of the Torah are just Satanists at that point. Like, they just want the opposition of God. If you believe that the metaphor is true, at least you believe that the ideas are correct. But I do think that there is a step above where you start to view this as literal history, as this actually happened. And the only reason to say that it didn't happen is because you believe that God is not powerful. Like, you don't think God can do these things? Like, if we're talking about an all-powerful God.
Well, the argument that's made on a broader statement, at least to intellectuals, is that God doesn't act outside of the nature that he created, right?
Says who?
No, that's the frame.
Yeah.
I don't agree with you. Actually, my personal thoughts on this are, whether it's metaphor or whether it's reality, they both mirror each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have the same outcome. And if you were to say that it's simply metaphor that drives people and gives them direction in a way that is the best quality of living, then great. That's level one. Level one, everybody should buy into that. Metaphor or reality, buy into it. And that'll bless your life. So I will start there, and I'll agree with those people completely. Mm-hmm. It really does come down to probable and improbable. And that people who are extremely logical, and the Jews like to label themselves as such, even though the Orthodox Jews are definitely not logical. They use that as a guise, unfortunately. That you continue to follow the probable outcomes, right? So if you know that it's probable for you to be successful following down the more probable route, you should probably take it. And then you get to another route in life and you take the more probable outcome and you continue to stack those up, you'll probably be a successful person who lives a good life. The reality about truly successful people and blessed people and great people is that their stories are not probable at all. Okay? Not probable at all. And that is the one thing in common for great people, not good people, great people. So if you want to open yourself up to greatness, then you should absolutely believe in the improbability of God performing miracles, you know, and you will open new doors and new realities to your life that you never could have imagined. Again, if you're interested in experiencing something new, something fresh, if you already knew how to get there, you'd already be there, right? So you have to be open to what is to come. And I wouldn't put a limitation on people and tell them, actually, I tell them quite the opposite. I think you should teach yourself to accept it as history because you still buy in at base level, but you also unlock a new door.
Yeah, because then it's actually a possibility, right? Maybe not a probability, but it's a possibility. And if you're going to just judge your life as you want to be another statistic, or do you want to be the exception, right? And as you say, the only way to be great is to be the exception. And people would rather just err on the side of caution and be like, no, well, statistically speaking, 90% of people end up this way. So
what's probable about the people in Europe thinking that they're going to end up in China, going around the world to find a faster way to get to it, and they end up in the entire United States of America, and then they start to take it over and populate it and teach it and intermingle and create this incredible country that we live in.
I just like to say,
what the hell is probable about
what is
that?
probable?
First of all, is that not a miracle?
It is, but I'm just saying, go back to existence itself. Like, what is the probability that this Earth even exists the way it does, with such precision and such perfection and such interconnectedness? What is the probability? And then take the Torah, where the Torah is telling you must believe in miracles, right? Actually, like, Abraham and Sarah are given a child at 90 and 100 years old, and when Sarah laughs, God gets upset. He says, why do you doubt me? God gets upset when Moses doubts his ability to heal his speech impediment. God gets upset when the Israelites doubt, when Moses doubts whether he can bring meat, the quail for the Jews. He says, is the hand of God shortened? Is there something that I can't do? Right? And he says that to Abraham as well. Is anything beyond Yahweh? Right? No, nothing is. Right? And so it's actually true faith to believe that God, like, what makes you think God can't break the laws of nature that he put into place, or that he can't change the very essence of nature, whereas you're seeing things in the Torah that completely look different than the world we live in? Why is reality defined based off of our own experience and perception? It's bullshit.
The argument that is made that will keep people, in my opinion, at that base level, which is still good. So I'm not deeming it wrong necessarily, but that God gave us this literature and he also created reality so that we could learn from it and do better, right? And so for him to be throwing in wrenches and going against the natural flow, which already is miraculous, like the birth of a baby, for example, incredibly miraculous. And now we've gotten far enough in science where we can answer these things, still doesn't make it any less miraculous, right? But it's within the frame of nature, and it's been happening since the beginning of time. And so people like to observe history, and that they don't feel that the actual literature itself could be real, or that the Jews were, actually slaves in Egypt and all this other stuff. There's a couple points, two things that just came to mind as I was saying that. One of them was, it comes down to it actually comes down to a joke, which I think is worth stating, right? Which is because there's a lot of people who also, in my comments, when I say a basic statement like Ishmael is the father of Islam, what I mean by that, to clarify for those who are upset about that particular statement, is that obviously the father of the religion of Islam is Muhammad, right?
Yeah, but
Muhammad is, Muhammad is a descendant of Ishmael. So I'm just going to the very root of where it all started.
I believe he references that in the Quran.
No, he does. That's why nobody would dispute that fact. But people who are not very educated on the matter get very upset when I say things like that. Like I said, Ishmael and Abraham were brothers. Okay, they were just
Ishmael and Isaac.
Ishmael and Isaac. You're correct. And Abraham is their father. So you just look at it as a stream of consciousness, and it should allow for togetherness, not separation. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's the vision. Like, it's not necessary for there to be division. We could come to a common ground, but in order to come to a common ground, people have to let go of the things that are stopping them from arriving at that common ground. God is not the
Surprisingly
thing.
enough, doesn't America make that statement as far as history, that people can be together?
Yeah.
You don't think that that's a miracle, that every diversity on earth, every type of person can have a free conversation and disagree in opinion, yet still live together under the rights of God?
Oh, it's definitely unprecedented historically.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But what is the foundation that allows that existence to exist? The Bible. It is that simple. The same way, Muslims don't like the simplicity of me saying that Ishmael is the father of Islam. The same exists in this particular example.
No, I mean,
I think
there's
people
nothing
make
wrong.
things a lot more
Yeah,
complicated.
but there's nothing wrong with
It's the
simplicity.
Bible. The Bible is the reason that
Yeah.
all these people have their rights.
Yeah.
It's what the Declaration of Independence was based on.
Well, I just
Again, it's what all the people who actually came here brought with them. I think that should tell people in general the importance of putting that into the curriculum for kids and students, and that doesn't matter if you view it as metaphor or analogy, or it's not real or it's real. It's still a part of history, whether you like it or not. And our society nowadays is covering up history from people. And this is broad. It's American history. It's everything. Right now, if you're a young man, a young woman, somewhere in Europe or in America or just about worldwide at the moment, you have no skills. You're getting a stimulus check from the government because you're a bum. You're an alcoholic. You can't work. You're this, you're that. The government will fund you. And then they'll say, well, you can play video games and watch porn and be a bot for the state as long as you like. And these people are like, oh, what a great deal. Let me keep taking that stimulus check. I don't want to work. Life's too hard. Life is terrible. And so the government is not only building slaves, but it's also creating a type of person that is anti-life. They're anti-life. And it's very scary. People need to see that the foundational thing that has been slipped from them is, who are we? What are we? Where are we going? What is this like biblical conquest that so many people have been on that has created so much life?
absolutely. And the aversion and the resistance to simplicity in the claims that, oh, we're so sophisticated, we know better now. No, look, you haven't moved beyond what you are fundamentally as a human being, and the Bible is there to address the human story and the human condition and what it means to live. And yeah, it doesn't go a lot further than earth, life, humans, male, female, children, family. Those are the keys to redemption. Those are the keys to living a good life, is to be engaging with.
Work, by
Yeah,
the way. For men, it's work.
yeah.
They need to
Well,
work. They need to do something.
yeah.
That's being taken from them as something that is within their nature. And this is exactly why women hate men at the moment.
Yeah.
They don't work. They don't have any skills. And they're willing to take that stimulus check.
Yeah. Well, it's something to consider that what we have now with feminism is men and women are competing in the same arena, as opposed to women taking up their role in the home and men taking up their role as providers. They're now the women have left the home and now they're competing with men in the workspace, and it's a very unpleasant thing for men to compete with women, and men ultimately just repeat the sin of Adam in their weakness and submitting to the woman and her perverse relationship with the snake instead of taking up their role as a man and enforcing the law of God. And yeah, I mean the gender confusion, the destruction of marriage, and the declining birth rate to the point that it's in the Western world, the birth rate is under replacement rate, meaning they're not actually replacing their own population with how low the birth rates are. And like, well, what does that even mean? That's just like, that's extinction level uh, culture that's depraved and immoral and broken.
Again, whether extinction will actually happen or not, I do believe that it won't, and that a lot of people understand that humanity is valuable, that there's enough people who will fight against that. But if we're not going to fight this battle, then our kids will.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, to all you young men and women just sitting around taking that stimulus check, masturbating to porn, I recommend trying to scoop up life and whatever it has to offer for you right now, because I can tell you, it is not ideal. It is not ideal. Inflation is on an all-time high. Look, I live in Los Angeles, so it's a far less traditional place. It's actually the least traditional place in the world. It's Hollywood. It's where the ideas are made and where everything gets spread out. And so it's been a great blessing to have been a part of everything that's going on there, yet still maintain this belief set. I think it gives a lot of people hope as well. I'm glad to be a symbol of that to some degree. I know you're a symbol of that, most certainly. And we're dealing with a lot of unpleasant and seemingly unrealistic scenarios, yet they're real. And this stranger than fiction reality in which we live really does have to change. We need to create that change, and that's personally what I'm trying to do. I wish it would take place amongst the Jews, because I can at least address my own people. Like, no matter what happens, clearly I'm not going to be able to cover up that I'm a Jew, even though I'm completely anti-Orthodox in the institutions that they've been doing. I'm also just about anti 99% of institutions. As somebody who is a business owner and has seen just how difficult it is to make a living.
Whether it's
What's the alternative?
or,
Like, what's the alternative? We need to live. We still need to pay rent. Men and women still are going to be together, even if it's within a promiscuous setting. You should at least follow through with the roles as best as you can. Nothing is going to be easy at this point, but there has to be pushback. And as human beings, we're likely to fail and make mistakes. But that's part of the process.
Well, look, it's definitely not easy, and it requires a great deal of sacrifice and responsibility to do things that you might not even want to do. But it comes with the belief that if you do the right thing, then you will reap the reward. And that's God's promise. Ultimately, what is God's promise in the Torah? If you follow my decrees and you act righteously, you'll be blessed. And if you don't, you'll be cursed. And that's what it boils down to in a pretty black and white vision board, really, if you think about it. And so it turns out that your guarantee is not the guarantee of the college degree, the guarantee of the job opportunity, or whatever people are putting their faith in, right? The guarantee is God and his promise, and your own correct actions being the result of goodness in your life. And what are the chances that you'll have a good life if you're doing the wrong thing? Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. So,
well, no, this is a statement for everybody. We kind of jump in between what's going on in the world to what's, you can basically say just about whatever problem's happening, the government's probably got something to do with it, right? And that, like, it's not a joke at all. And, so we talk about specific implementations. Like, again, I don't know how many people are aware, but if you want to open a business in Los Angeles and you go get yourself a business license, you actually have to go to the city and you have to pay them a fee in order to establish your business in the fictitious business statement. And the fictitious business statement is microscopic letters on a newspaper that only exist within the fictitious business statement.
oh my God.
And once you pay those fees, they will send you a license in the mail that you are who you are. That's the same thing as saying, oh, you want to open a business? Walk on your hands and juggle with your feet.
Because we said so.
Just because we said, oh, and pay us a fee.
Yeah.
You have to pay us a fee, and then you have to walk on your hands and juggle with your feet. Okay.
No, it's so degrading.
These
what they put
are
you through.
It's complete
it's robbery.
degradation. And why do you think that men don't want to work? Also, the work's just too hard. People are broken down. They would rather accept a stimulus check and their lame ass life than give it a shot and go through some sort of uncomfort. And it is unfortunate to see so many men go for that. And I am talking about the problem of masculinity, specifically in this video, in this video, because it is a massive issue. And I know we talk a lot about the issues in feminism, but as a man, I could definitely speak on behalf of men not doing their job and their role. And also, men historically are the saviors. They're the saviors. So you guys need to step up. You need to be the heroes right now. You need to go on conquest and do difficult things, and you need to even harden yourself if that's what it takes, and sacrifice. You're going to have to go do some sacrifice.
I mean, men are the warriors. Men are the law enforcement. Men build all of the infrastructure.
Well, not anymore, right?
Well, still,
the
though,
infrastructure
still,
that they haven't really seemed to
well,
be able
I'm
to
saying
infiltrate.
the
but
majority.
there are women in the
No, the women are
police force.
infiltrating the police force and the military. It's still majority men.
Well, that's a terrible thing. That's
and it's
also
a terrible
making our
thing.
military weak,
Of course.
which is only going to result in chaos.
It's making our military
Problems.
weak, and it's making our homes weak.
Yeah.
Because you now have women in the military and not in the home.
Well, I've said this before, where you look at the fall of Rome, they had spread out and weak border patrol. There was a confusion of gender, a particular glorification of male genitalia. It is hilarious that they used to think that what was attractive on a man was a small penis because his ego was small. And nowadays you have to have big dick, right? And well, that's because it's part of the porn culture, right? But these are two opposite ends of the same spectrum. Women reacted about the same to both, right? Which is tells you a little bit about women and how easily they are to manipulate to the societal standard, right? The societal standard does not create reality. If society and Hitler deems that all Jews are bad, then genocide is the answer. No, genocide's not the answer. If the genocide that happened in Armenia is justified because the government said so, it's not justified. You see, the societal standard is not what creates reality. And these people are disgusting. They're despicable. And all these genocides are terrible. You know, I'd like to speak as a man who really empathizes and has seen such incredible beauty and actually biblical structure within the Armenian people. They today actually is the Armenian Genocide Day. Did you know that?
Is it today?
Yeah.
Oh,
today.
wow.
It's their Memorial Day.
Wow.
And again, this is a call to even my Armenian brothers and sisters. Guys, this isn't a comparison game of whose genocide is worse. We both had genocide. It was both wrong. The political games that were played in order to cover up these stories were disgusting and despicable. And we are the ones who need to do the fighting so that our children don't have to. Okay.
Yeah, and so that these things don't happen again. And society does not dictate morality. That's the worst. By the way, that's like the kind of the premise of democracy is like whatever we vote on is the truth. So humans, people get to dictate truth and morality as long as we vote on it. If we vote, as you said, that genocide is good, well, then now genocide is good. But no, the point is that morality is baked into the structure of existence and is provided by God. And so if we're not all bowing to the standard that God puts on us, then everyone will be caught up in their own opinions.
That's why I don't want to like undo the good structures that have existed. Like I do think that voting can be a good way to determine an answer, because if you have a bunch of God-fearing people and they make a vote, again, it's the same thing with electing a good leader. If you have a bunch of thinking individuals, then you will elect a smart leader who is interested in the public's best. But if you have a bunch of dumb and weak people, then they're just going to elect whoever they're told to. And that's what's going on.
Yeah, but my point is that you don't get to vote about morality.
I understand your point. I just wanted to talk about voting.
No, I understand. It's an interesting
as
question.
A societal structure.
Voting, something I thought about, because the concept of voting is actually not in the Torah. If you think about it, there's never an example of a vote that's taken.
Well, who makes who? You see,
there's always
who makes the judgments.
God is always
there's
deciding.
a justice system.
Yeah, there is a justice system, but it's not implied that it works through votes. In fact, it says do not follow the majority.
Well, there's a counting process, right? We have the whole book of numbers. So the people.
I was just counting the numbers of the people.
No, I understand.
Not in terms of voting in law.
I mean, there's no electoral vote or ballots.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's you have kings are anointed through a prophet that God is very much involved in the process of anointing leaders, it seems. And then you could choose, like Moses chooses the judges and stuff like that, but it ultimately hinges on those individuals being righteous.
Well, look, it's a slippery slope, because a lot of people like to use God as a tool of control. They like to profane his name and use it for blasphemy. That's what it is at the root, right? They're saying, well, God told you so.
For sure.
That is what is so disgusting about the Orthodoxy and why I've separated myself from it, why we even speak on this matter. Because there's obviously political things that we discuss worldwide that have nothing to do with Judaism. But we kind of jump back and forth into the Judaic issue because that's what we're born into. And this is for our fellow brethren as well. I'd like to mention that 80% of the Jews are non-practicing, and they're like the people in Hollywood, like Scarlett Johansson and Adrian Brody and who else? Tom Holland,
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot, right? Like all your stars are all Jewish. So you see, there's a lot of humanity, there's a lot of beauty there, and there's tons of other stars that are not Jewish. Like Al Pacino is freaking amazing, Robert De Niro, incredible. So we're all sharing the space here. 80% of the Jews are non-practicing, and they've left Judaism because the only alternative to Judaism is Orthodoxy. And so like they kind of know the laws like loosely. I like to use like Adam Sandler as an example, because he's got really huge success, hilarious,
He knows
awesome
all about
guy.
the bar mitzvah.
Yeah, but he knows all about the bar mitzvah, Baruch, Atah, and like every non-religious Jew kind of runs through that.
But it's ultimately,
but the bar mitzvah is not there.
Yeah, it's not the Torah.
The kippah is not there. I pointed out the tzitzit earlier because the tzitzit is there. So when the Orthodoxy tells you that, oh, God doesn't allow you to walk 3 steps without your kippah on, they're lying to you. There's nowhere on God's Torah. That is only in the Gemara, right? Again, you can't touch your eyes in the morning because you need to wash your hands with a netilat yadayim cup. 3 in this direction, 3 in that direction, or actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, 3 in this direction and 3 for this direction.
That's for bread.
That's for bread. That's for bread, right?
But if you're Ashkenaz, then it's 2.
Oh, okay. All of this is made up. And I like to make a mockery of it because it is a mockery, and the world sees it as a mockery, and it's where the hatred of the Jews actually comes from. I would encourage all of my Jewish brethren to start following the 5 books of Moses, because your 80% of malpractice isn't good either. That's not good.
No.
That's why I'm an observant Jew. I think Jews should try and be observant. That should be the label that they take upon themselves.
Yeah. But
Orthodox, Hasidic, I wear the clown nose, I do the twirls, I wear the fur hat. It's all the same thing. They just want to be part of a group. And, well, we're not part of a group. And we have our individuality, we have our humanity, we have our freedom of speech. God has blessed us and has allowed us to integrate with other cultures and other people to spread his word as God said we should.
Well, it's interesting that even non-religious Jews, when they find themselves in the Jewish space, they always default to the tradition, right? They're like, oh, well, let's put on the kippah, Baruch atah Adonai, right? And that's the default. Even when they're trying to be religious, it just comes down to like matzah ball soup on Passover. And
I believe that the majority of the Jews, the non-practicing ones, don't actually know the difference between tradition and law, and they only accept it as one thing, so they ditch it. And then the 20% are so stuck that we can't keep the handful of laws in the 5 books, so we needed to add 5,000
to make it more simple.
Exactly. And so that is the idiocracy and the people whose brains are filled with rocks. Stop getting manipulated by people whose brains are filled with rocks. Absolutely. They're dumber than rocks. Actually, I think that people should push back and ask questions. Unfortunately, when you grow up in the Orthodoxy, in the community, you don't know the difference between things because you're a kid and you're experiencing it for the first time. But if you're an adult who had experiences and went through life, the things that they say in a very slow and hypnotic tone are not the truth, because it doesn't line up with what? The literature. We talked about judges, right? Israel implements judges in order to do their law. Of course, if there's a corruption in the law, in the justice system, then not only does it have to be combated, but then the whole system's broken, right? So what does the book tell you? The book tells you, elect leaders who despise money and follow the law by the book. They follow it by the book. That is on us as people to elect these people into positions. And, perhaps it's a voting system. I don't know. That's up to the people to decide how they do it. But there is a position for people to start implementing this. God is not holding your hand to brush your teeth and floss in the morning. Flossing is not exactly pleasant, but it's definitely good for you. There are people who can't afford to teeth cleanings and stuff of that because of the inflation. So again, I'm making a minute point about a basic function. God's not going to tell you how to build a fridge, or to get one if you need it. These are the tasks in life that God left to us, and the information is there to be read, and it's there to be considered and questioned, like Moses.
Yeah. And by the way, to point out, beyond just questioning, you can come to conclusions too, because that's one of the crafty things that the Orthodox will do is like, good question, right? It's like, no, this is not a question. This is a conclusion. Like, you're wrong. End of story, right? It's because, like, if you can constantly be in a state of questioning, so then you never really get to come to a conclusion. And they're perfectly happy to have an endless conversation, circular dialogue, questions and questions. Like, I just did a podcast with an Orthodox rabbi, and we learned a Talmud, a passage of Talmud together. And by the end, I proved that the entire conversation was irrelevant and useless. And he was like, wow, what a good question. That's the greatest question the Rebbe's ask. And we have a book of 50 pages to see what the answer is. It's like, no, this is not a question. I just proved to you that this entire conversation is irrelevant. End of story. And the fact that people are going to stay in that loop of questioning is what will kill them, because you
can
have to get
imagine,
out.
What is a kid supposed to do to that?
Exactly, yeah.
He has no chance. He has no chance. A 78-year-old man, 60, whatever.
No, that's
A
his
man,
parents,
an
it's his
adult male
teachers.
is
They're all-
talking to you like that. You're going to be stuck in the loop. You're just
Yeah.
going to listen to whatever he says, and
Yeah.
they get caught. Just so you get an idea of how bad it is in the religious institutions, I helped a student train at my gym, and he is very orthodox, and he has no time to make his sessions, and the parents are concerned about his health. And the reason that it is because he does not stand straight. It's been developed over years. He has kyphosis of reading 10 plus hours a day. And he doesn't have a care in the world about his physical health or the longevity of his life. He only wants to be in Jewish studies. And I had a conversation with him where I, of course, asked him why it is that he can't make certain sessions, not to mention that he barely makes any of them because there's always a fast. There's always a holiday that's not implemented by God. There's always extra curriculum. Remember, this kid is in school from 6, 7, 8 in the morning until 10 p.m. at night. And all he's doing is just not even secular stuff, not like educating himself on math, science, literature, just the Gemara. And the final point that I wanted to address was that when I asked him why he couldn't make a session, he said, well, I just took on extra curriculum because I finally upgraded to the point where I'm going to be able to read the Gemara on my own. So I'm taking a class that'll teach me how to read the Gemara on my own. And I said, if you're anything, you're an expert reader because you read at 6 in the morning and you stop at 10 p.m. at night. You don't think that you could read the Gemara on your own? No, he doesn't think that. He doesn't even think about the fact that he is pushing himself to follow a narrative that is just a lie, and it's just crushing him. It's just hurting him and stripping him of his own humanity, which is to be strong, to stand upright, to be kind, right? To act well. The book of the five books is a book of action. It's a book of actions that the Christians took and did godly things with it, and I'm all about that narrative. That's why I can't be part of the Orthodoxy in any degree. They're simply hurting their own beyond recovery and rejecting the people who want the truth to be unobservant.
I mean, what do the curses look like? Physical and mental illness and brokenness.
Poverty.
Yeah, poverty, mental illness, sickness, all of these things. That's the curses in the Torah. And so how interesting, the people that are the ones who are upholding the Torah are the ones reaping all of these curses, right?
Again, this just loops back to why people hate the Jews, because the Orthodoxy has been representing Jewish culture for 2,000 years. And they look like the cursed people that they are. So I would recommend to Jews to not be Orthodox, to start reading the 5 books of Moses and start following the laws as it is written. That has worked, by the way. It worked so well that 66 people with Bibles came on the Mayflower to Virginia, and wrote the first set of civil laws and essentially created the United States of America
Yeah.
to some degree. That they were certainly influential enough for that to be said and for it to not be a lie. And you can fact check these things.
Your dad said one of the original colonists who built one of the first colonies in America. He said we found the laws in the 5 books of Moses to be self-sufficient to govern a society morally.
They applied the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath, resting on the seventh day, no fire, no cooking, and just rest, abstain from all work. They actually had fines for idleness, so people would just idleness, where they don't do anything, right? That's why actually I feel that I forget his name, but the gentleman who created essentially the first tobacco, he was like guilty for having idleness, and he went and created the tobacco company that took off. It's not John Locke, I don't think. John Locke, if I'm correct, is the one who married Pocahontas and kind of integrated the Native American culture into
Interesting.
the European culture. And John Locke, by the way, married Pocahontas, and Pocahontas was a underage girl. And so,
oh my God,
you know, the whole notion that a 12-year-old princess was hanging around that colony, and then she got married sometime between 16 and 18. Nowadays, they'd be flogged and killed, and these people built lives. They actually, the 27-year-old guy married somewhere between 14 and 18. No, 14 and 17. And that's actually, they made the Disney cartoon like based on that whole scenario, and she is actually playing a very young girl. And women who take up their role at an early age should have the freedom to interact with society and marry and stick with the man and be a princess amongst the world. I don't see that as an issue at all. Again, another thing that all these laws that people implement, they're saying that the society is what creates truth, and it's not true. It's just not true at all. Again, society was built off of all those things that don't exist now.
No, society is not your guarantee. In fact, a woman's guarantee is a man, if having a good man. Like, her man is her guarantee that she'll have someone to provide and protect for her. The government's not her guarantee. No one.
Look what they're doing to our young daughters now, or the young girls in the high school system. I mean, we can go there if we want to, but like simply put, you're saying that anywhere between the ages of 12 and 17, you're not going to get pregnant, you're not going to have a husband, you're not going to have a long-term relationship, and you're going to have sex with every loser bum that you could possibly fit into your space of experience.
Yeah. No. And again, if women think that that's going to be their road to freedom, to be a whore, no.
Well, that's what they're saying, because now we have these laws that allow us to do these things. So we should exercise our right. We're just rebelling.
We have choice, so let's choose
rebelling
wrong.
Against yourself?
Yeah, no, you have the choice, so now you should choose wrong.
Insane.
No,
insane.
It's an insane.
Look, you know, we've given a rap on men, we give a rap on women, on Judaism, on Orthodoxy, on culture, on American history. These are things that people can access very easily. We're in the information day and age. There's amazing historian Paul Johnson. If you want to become super educated on history, Paul Johnson is incredible. He's been my introduction to history, being completely malnourished with positive history in the American education system. And the Bible, again, removed. The Bible also removed from Orthodox day school. Okay. Ridiculous that that's a reality. And those are simple things that should be implemented back into society, and people need to start making a push for that to be in the education system, because the alternative to not fixing the education system is literally war. Anybody want war? No, nobody wants war. Okay. And I will say, as a fact of war, because I have read up on history, that almost 10 years prior to the start of World War II, there were whipping orgies. That was the term for it. And Nazis or SS officers would take close to 1,000 Jews and whip them to death on the streets. That took place 10 years before the war actually started. So if you think that you're free of terrible, terrible war crimes in this given day and age, we need to do everything in our power to stop that. Anyways, I think that's a wrap for me. If you got anything you want to finish it on.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it right. We're trying to address as many relevant topics as possible. The Jewish topic is relevant to us personally and seems to be very relevant in the dialogue, public dialogue as well. The gender roles, men need to be masculine, women need to be feminine. We need to live with faith, we need to build families, we need to stop caving to the pressures of society, whether it's the false beauty standards, whether it's the horrible caricature of the woman boss bitch as being like the hero, when really the hero is the mother and her children, and men need to stop being weak, because that's the downfall of men. And we have our work cut out for us, but if we work on the right things, we'll actually be able to succeed, as opposed to working on all the wrong things and then just being worn out from slavery, from all the back-breaking labor.
Yeah, yeah. And back to the top of the video, people need to start bringing back, for all those men, they need to bring back their inner Sean Connery.
Yes, yeah. When Sean Connery was...
You ever hear of Pushi Kalur? We did a little jiu-jitsu.
Wait, what?
Oh, that was just like my best impression.
Pushi what?
Pushi Kalur. You don't know her from the films? There's a villainess. Her name is
her name is Pushi. Yeah.
And he wanted to, I do jujitsu.
Yeah.
And then, like, at the end of the whole film, he's just wonderful. You know, I have a great appreciation for film as somebody who was born in Los Angeles, and these very masculine archetypes were really cool to see growing up, and that's been one of the positive influences for sure in my life. I know that the James Bond films are usually like pro-promiscuity, but at least he put a woman in her place. Misogynist.
No, exactly. I mean, just to see real masculinity being portrayed as something desirable and good, that's the whole thing. Is like, you can push the narrative in whatever direction you want, right?
The society is going to deem you to anything, like, yeah, you're not going to just stop being yourself. If you're a man that's masculine, continue to do that. It's good for the world.
And that's good. So, like, how about we push good narratives as opposed to
if you're a woman that's feminine, continue to run with that. Should trust your instinct, and your desire to want children and a family is good. And if you're one of the women who can actually commit herself to that lifestyle, you're saving the world. You're the mother of all living.
Absolutely.
It's just amazing. And
no, I think we're given the opportunity right now to really save this ship from sinking, and we got to do it.
It's a pleasure to be doing it with you. God bless you.
God bless you.
Reality.
Thank you. Amen.